230,428 kilometers per hour. That is the insane speed with which this object is cutting through the icy darkness of outer space right now. While you are drinking your morning coffee or scrolling through your news feed, this giant traveler is approaching us. Today is April 24th, 2026, and the National Aeronautics and Space Administration has just officially confirmed what amateur astronomers have been whispering about for the last few months. This is not just another asteroid. This is not space debris. This is Comet C 2025 S1 Atlas, and it has already become visible to the naked eye. Forget about telescopes. Forget about complicated equipment. You will be able to see it simply by looking up after sunset. It looks like a blurry star with a long, ghostly tail stretching for millions of kilometers. But do not let this beauty deceive you. This nucleus, consisting of ice, dust, and primordial gas, carries secrets that are more than 4,500,000,000 years old. It remembers the birth of our solar system. It saw how the Earth was formed, and now it is returning. Why exactly now? Why have scientists around the world suddenly held their breath? This is not just a courtesy visit. The trajectory of this comet passes so close to our planet that it causes not only admiration, but also serious questions for those who monitor the safety of our skies. Before we begin, write which city you are from so that we know how far our stories travel, and do not forget to subscribe. Here is what most people do not know. This is not an ordinary comet. It is a sun grazer. It is flying directly toward the scorching corona of our star. Will it survive this encounter? Will it break apart into thousands of fragments, creating for us the greatest light show in human history? Or perhaps does its path hide something much more dangerous for our technologies and peace of mind? By the end of this video, you will know more than 99% of the people on the planet about what this tailed guest actually brings us. Are you ready to look into the eyes of a true cosmic abyss? Imagine a huge block of dirty ice and rock, the size of a small city. This block slumbered for billions of years on the very outskirts of our solar system, in a cold and dark place that scientists call the Oort cloud. Absolute zero and eternal silence reigned there. But something disturbed this peace. Perhaps the gravitational influence of a distant star or a barely noticeable shift of masses. And this icy fragment began its long fall toward the sun. Today we know it as Comet C 2025 S1 Atlas. It was discovered using the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, abbreviated as ATLAS. This is a network of telescopes that tirelessly scan the sky so that we do not miss any threat. But this time, they found something incredible. Now in April 2026, the comet has crossed a conventional line, after which it is no longer possible to ignore it. It is rapidly entering the inner part of the solar system. It is not flying alone. Behind it stretches a colossal trail of gas and dust, which under the influence of the solar wind begins to glow brighter than most stars in our sky. This is not just another dot on the map of the starry sky. This is a rare event that astronomers call a great comet. The last time humanity observed such a spectacle was decades ago. Now the comet is at a distance that allows even residents of large cities with their bright night lighting to see it. This is a spectacle that makes you stop and think about how small we are compared to the majesty of the cosmos. It moves along an extremely elongated orbit. Its path lies so close to the sun that scientists classify it as a sun grazer, or one that grazes the sun. This means that the comet will fly through the outer layers of the solar atmosphere. The temperature there reaches millions of degrees. This is a true test of endurance for the cosmic traveler. You may ask, why is the whole world discussing this piece of ice so enthusiastically? The answer lies in the composition of the comet itself. It is a time capsule. It contains the primordial substance from which our entire system was molded. Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and even you and I. By studying the composition of its tail, scientists are literally reading the recipe for creating planets. It is like finding your great-great-grandfather's diary, written before your house was even built. Only on the scale of the cosmos, this diary is older than all the mountains on Earth. Comet Atlas belongs to the Kreutz family. This is a group of comets that scientists believe are fragments of one giant icy object that broke apart thousands of years ago. Each such fragment is a priceless piece of the mosaic of our history. The importance of this event also lies in the fact that Atlas is extremely bright. Most comets remain invisible to the naked eye, requiring powerful binoculars or telescopes. But this guest decided to put on a real performance. Its brightness is increasing exponentially. This gives scientists a unique opportunity to use instruments that are not usually involved in such research. We have this level of technological readiness for an encounter with an object of such magnitude for the first time. Satellites from the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, the European Space Agency, and private companies have directed all their eyes to this point. We are observing the process of ice evaporation, how gases that were frozen for billions of years are released under the influence of heat. But there is another side. Sun grazers are very unpredictable. When such an object approaches the sun, gravitational forces begin to literally tear it apart. This creates incredible tension inside the nucleus. If the comet breaks apart, we will see not one tail, but an entire firework display of fragments. It will be the largest scientific experiment set by nature itself. This is also important for our safety. Although Atlas will not collide with the Earth, studying its trajectory and how it reacts to solar gravity helps us better understand the dynamics of dangerous objects. Every such visit is training for planetary defense systems. You might think that events in deep space do not affect your life, but that is not true. Right now, Atlas is becoming a part of our culture. Look at your social networks. The feeds are filled with images of the night sky. People have started looking up again, tearing themselves away from their smartphone screens. This phenomenon unites billions of people. Imagine that at the same moment, a person in Kyiv, New York, Tokyo, and Cape Town sees the same object. It is a rare moment of planetary unity. The comet becomes the main topic of conversation in lines, in offices, and at family dinners. It reminds us that we are all passengers on one small spaceship called Earth. For many, this is an opportunity to touch science. Thousands of children seeing this tail in the sky will decide today to become astronomers, physicists, or engineers. This is inspiration that cannot be obtained from textbooks. This is living history unfolding above our heads. Moreover, the comet affects the technological infrastructure on which we depend. When a comet approaches the sun, it sheds a huge amount of dust and gas. This material interacts with the solar wind, which can cause disturbances in the magnetosphere of the sun. Although the risk to Earth is minimal, operators of communications satellites and global positioning systems are carefully monitoring the situation. Even a small deviation in navigation can affect logistics, air travel, and the operation of your favorite apps for ordering food or taxis. And finally, it is a question of our perception of time. In a world where everything happens instantly, a comet teaches us patience. Its journey lasted millions of years. Its appearance was predicted months ago. It reminds us of the rhythms of the universe, which are much larger than our daily worries. Leading scientists of the world do not hide their excitement. Dr. Elizabeth Grant, lead researcher of near-Earth objects at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, notes, "This is what we call a once-in-a-generation event. We have seen many comets, but Atlas has all the signs of becoming the brightest object of the 21st century. We are literally holding our breath, waiting for its perihelion passage." Professor Mark Watkins from Oxford University adds, "The biggest intrigue is the integrity of the nucleus. Our models show that the tidal forces of the sun will try to crush the comet like a nut. If it survives, we will get an incredible show. If not, we will see the death of a cosmic giant live." Astrophysicist from Harvard, Dr. Arish Kumar, emphasizes the technical aspect. We have the opportunity to observe the interaction of a comet with the solar corona, using such a large number of high-precision instruments for the first time. This will give us answers to questions about the composition of matter that we have been asking for 50 years. Even the usually restrained representatives of the European Space Agency acknowledge the uniqueness of the moment. Their latest report states, the trajectory of Comet C 2025S1 is exceptional. Its proximity to Earth and the inclination of its orbit create ideal conditions for observation from both hemispheres of the planet. It is truly a global event. Scientists warn that the next few weeks will be critical. The comet is entering the maximum risk zone. It is heating up to incredible temperatures. Its ice is turning into steam, creating enormous pressure inside. This is the death zone from which not all comets return. But here is what you must understand. Everything you have seen up to this point is just a warm-up. The real drama will begin very soon. Do you think that this bright tail is the limit? You are wrong. Here is what most people do not know. According to the latest data from radio telescopes, anomalous gas emissions have been detected inside the comet, which scientists cannot yet explain. This may indicate that something completely different is hidden under the layer of old ice. Perhaps the structure of the comet is much more complex than we are used to thinking. You can feel it right now, that sense of tension that has gripped the scientific community. Is it true that Atlas carries organic molecules that could have once brought life to Earth? Is there a risk that after the comet breaks apart, its dust cloud will cross the orbit of our planet, causing an unprecedented meteor storm capable of disabling our satellites? By the end of this video, we will break down the worst and best scenarios. We will look into the very heart of this cosmic traveler and find out why the military departments of some countries have begun to show an atypical interest in it. The next part of our journey is dedicated to the science behind this phenomenon. We will figure out how this cosmic engine works and why it cannot be stopped. You will see a chronology of the discovery that looks more like a detective story than a dry report from astronomers. Is human civilization ready for what this tale might bring? Stay with us, because next we will dive into details that are not written in the news headlines. The real story is just beginning. To understand exactly what we see in the night sky, we need to set aside romance and look at the comet through the eyes of an astrophysicist. At its core, Comet C 2025S1 Atlas is what the famous astronomer Fred Whipple called a dirty snowball back in the middle of the 20th century. But this name is too simplified for such a complex object. The nucleus of a comet is a monolithic object consisting of water ice, frozen gases such as carbon dioxide, methane, and ammonia, as well as inclusions of silicate dust and complex organic molecules. These substances have been in a state of deep freeze since the birth of our solar system, which is more than 4,500,000,000 years ago. The nucleus of our guest has a diameter of about 5 kilometers. This is a colossal mass rushing through the vacuum. How does it work? While the comet is far from the sun, it remains an invisible dark block. But as soon as it crosses the so-called frost line, the conventional boundary between the orbits of Jupiter and Mars, the magic of physics begins. Solar radiation begins to heat the surface of the nucleus. Since there is no atmospheric pressure in space, ice does not melt into water. It passes from a solid state directly into a gaseous state. This process is called sublimation. Pockets of high-pressure gas form under the surface of the nucleus. At some point, they break through the icy crust, creating giant geysers that we call jets. These jets eject tons of dust and gas into the surrounding space. This is exactly how the coma is formed around the nucleus, a giant gas shell that can exceed the diameter of Jupiter in size. The coma of Atlas now extends for 150,000 kilometers. But the most interesting part begins when the solar wind comes into play, a stream of charged particles flying from the sun at speeds of millions of kilometers per hour. It is what blows out the coma, forming the famous tail. In fact, Comet Atlas has two of them. The first is the ion tail, consisting of ionized gas. It is always directed strictly away from the sun and has a bluish tint due to the presence of carbon monoxide ions. The second is the dust tail. It consists of small particles that reflect sunlight. This tail curves slightly along the orbit of the comet under the influence of gravity and light pressure. What causes such incredible brightness in this particular comet? The reason lies in its chemical composition and proximity to our star. Atlas is rich in volatile substances. The closer it approaches the sun, the more intense the sublimation becomes. The surface temperature of the nucleus rises from -200 degrees to thousands of degrees Celsius in just a few weeks. This causes real thermal shock. Chemical reactions in the coma under the influence of ultraviolet light make the gas glow. This phenomenon is similar to the operation of a neon lamp, where an electric discharge makes gas emit light. Only in our case, the source of energy is an entire star. Here is what most people do not know. The brightness of a comet depends not only on its size, but also on how dust particles scatter light. This phenomenon is called forward scattering. When a comet is positioned almost between the Earth and the Sun, the dust particles in its tail act like billions of microscopic mirrors, directing light straight at us. This is exactly what is happening with Atlas now, making it dozens of times brighter than initial mathematical models predicted. The history of the discovery of C-2025 S1 Atlas is a triumph of modern technology and artificial intelligence algorithms. It all started not with a person with binoculars, but with a robotic system in the mountains of Hawaii. The Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, known as ATLAS, was created by the University of Hawaii with funding from the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Its main goal is not to look for beautiful comets, but to warn us in time about cosmic objects that may threaten the planet. On September 28, 2025, a telescope on the summit of Mauna Loa recorded a faint object in the constellation Ursa Major. At that time, it was so weak that no amateur instrument could see it. The object received a technical designation and was entered into the Minor Planet Center database. Initially, scientists thought it was an ordinary asteroid. However, after 2 days of observation, incorporating data from the system's second telescope in South Africa, astronomers noticed a strange feature. The object had a barely noticeable blur around the center. This was a coma. It became clear. A comet is flying toward us. Image showing the location of Atlas telescopes in Hawaii and South Africa. How did our understanding develop? Over the following weeks, the world's largest observatories joined the observations. Using the triangulation method, scientists began to calculate its orbit. The results were stunning. Calculations showed that the comet came to us from the Oort cloud, a hypothetical spherical region on the outskirts of the solar system that is thousands of times farther than Pluto. The key moment of the study was the realization that Atlas is part of the Kreutz family. This group of comets was studied by Heinrich Kreutz at the end of the 19th century. He noticed that many bright comets move along very similar orbits, approaching incredibly close to the Sun. Scientists concluded that thousands of years ago, there was one supercomet over 100 kilometers in diameter. Under the influence of gravity, it broke into many fragments. Atlas is one of the largest and most intact fragments of that ancient giant. This discovery changed everything. If Atlas belongs to this family, it means that we are dealing with an object that has already passed through hellish conditions near the Sun as part of a larger body. This explains its high density and ability to survive where other comets simply evaporate. To confirm the trajectory, resources from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration were utilized. Supercomputers calculated the influence of the gravity of all the major planets. It turned out that the path of the comet is clear, and no giant planet will change its course enough to make it fall to Earth. This reassured the military, but only fueled the interest of the scientific community. In January 2026, the James Webb Space Telescope took a series of images of the comet's nucleus. This allowed the precise determination of its size and rotation speed for the first time. It turned out that the nucleus rotates very quickly, one revolution every 8 hours. This creates enormous centrifugal forces, which together with solar heating, make its behavior even less predictable. Let us restore the chronology of this cosmic drama to understand the scale of time we are dealing with. And it all started millions of years ago. Comet Atlas was in a state of deep hibernation in the Oort cloud at a distance of approximately 1 light-year from Earth. That is so far that light from the Sun takes more than a year to get there. Approximately 3 million years ago, An accidental gravitational nudge knocked it out of its place and sent it on a journey to the center of the system. For millions of years, it slowly accelerated, falling into the gravitational well of our star. In 2018, it crossed the orbit of Neptune, remaining completely unnoticed by human instruments. At that time, it was just an icy rock showing no signs of life. The first key date for us is September 28th, 2025, the official discovery. At that time, the comet was at a distance of 4 astronomical units from Earth, which is 4 times farther than we are from the Sun. On December 5th, 2025, the comet crossed the frost line. On this very day, astronomers recorded the first signs of activity. The coma began to form. Its brightness jumped by 2 magnitudes in just 48 hours. This was a signal that we were dealing with an extremely active object. On February 10th, 2026, Atlas passed the orbit of Mars. Its tail grew to 10 million kilometers. During this period, spectral analysis of the gas was obtained for the first time. Scientists found a high concentration of cyanide and diatomic carbon, which gave the coma a characteristic green color in professional photographs. March 15th, 2026. The comet became visible in powerful amateur binoculars. World comet mania began. Social networks exploded with the first long exposure shots. Scientists noticed the first major mass ejection. The nucleus shed part of its crust, leading to a burst in brightness. April 1st, 2026. Atlas crossed the orbit of Earth, but on the other side of the Sun. Its brightness reached magnitude 4. Now it could be seen with the naked eye in rural areas where there is no light pollution. Today, April 24th, 2026, we are at one of the most interesting points on the timeline. The comet is rapidly approaching perihelion, the closest point of its orbit to the Sun. It is already 10 times brighter than the North Star. Its tail occupies an area in the sky equal to 30 full moons, if viewed in ideal conditions. What lies ahead for us? May 8th, 2026 will be Day X. The comet will pass at a distance of only 1,200,000 kilometers from the surface of the Sun. This is less than the diameter of the star itself. At this moment, the speed of Atlas will reach its peak, over 600 kilometers per second. If it survives, then from May 10th to May 20th, we will see a spectacle that humanity has not known for hundreds of years. The comet will appear in the evening sky with an incredibly long and bright tail that will be visible even in the center of large metropolises. You can feel it right now. We are witnesses to an event that happens once in a lifetime. By the end of this video, you will know more than 99% of people about how this cosmic journey will affect our planet and our technologies. Are you ready to find out about the geography of this phenomenon and hear the forecasts of those who have dedicated their lives to studying celestial bodies? When we talk about the geography of a cosmic event, we mean not only where it is visible on Earth, but also what place it occupies in the space of our solar system. Comet C 2025 S1 Atlas is now a global phenomenon. Its path is such that practically every inhabitant of our planet has a chance to become a witness to this event. Although observation conditions are constantly changing depending on your latitude. At the moment, in the second half of April 2026, residents of the Northern Hemisphere have the best conditions for observation. If you are in Ukraine, Europe, the United States of America, or Canada, you are lucky. The comet appears low above the horizon in the pre-dawn hours. It moves through the constellation Pisces, gradually approaching the constellation Aries. But because of its incredible brightness, the sunlight scattering in the atmosphere before sunrise can no longer completely hide its glow. However, the geography of visibility will soon change. After the comet passes its point of maximum approach to the Sun on May 8th, it will jump to the evening sky. During this period, it will become the dominant object for residents of the Southern Hemisphere, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and the countries of South America. For them, Comet Atlas will appear in all its majesty with a tail that will stretch across a third of the sky. The scales of this phenomenon are difficult for the human mind to grasp. Let us try to compare. The nucleus of the comet has a diameter of about 5 kilometers. This is like a huge mountain, higher than most peaks in the Alps, flying in a void. But this is only the tip of the iceberg. The coma of the comet, the cloud of gas around the nucleus, now has a diameter of 150,000 kilometers. This is larger than the diameter of the planet Jupiter, the largest planet in our system. That is, if we place Jupiter inside this cloud, it would easily fit there. But the real scale is revealed in the tail. The tail of Comet Atlas has already stretched for 30 million kilometers. To give you an idea, this is almost a fifth of the distance from the Earth to the Sun. If you lined up 75 trips from the Earth to the Moon and back, only then would you get the length of this giant trail. This tail consists of such a rarefied substance that it is cleaner than any vacuum we can create in laboratories on Earth. However, due to the huge volume and solar lighting, it looks like a bright, dense strip of light. The regions affected by this phenomenon are literally the entire planet. Scientists from the observatory in Chile, radio telescopes in Australia, and satellites in orbit work in a single network. This is the first case in history where we have such a dense geographic map of observations. Even at scientific stations in Antarctica, researchers go out into the cold to record spectral data of the comet while the polar night lasts. The geography of Atlas is the geography of all humanity looking at one point. Numbers are the language in which the universe speaks to us, and in the case of Comet C 2025 S1 Atlas, these numbers are simply staggering. Let us break down the specific numbers that make this event unique in the history of modern astronomy. Let us start with the speed. Right now, the comet is moving at a speed of 64 kilometers per second relative to Earth. That is 230,400 kilometers per hour. With such a speed, you could fly from Kiev to London in less than 40 seconds. But when the comet approaches perihelion, the closest point to the Sun, its speed under the influence of the star's gravity will rise to an incredible 610 kilometers per second. This is over 2 million kilometers per hour. This is a speed that allows covering the distance from the Earth to the Moon in just 10 minutes. The mass of the comet is estimated at approximately 70 billion tons. This is like 70,000 of the world's largest aircraft carriers gathered into one icy ball. However, despite such a mass, the comet loses about 30 tons of its substance every second. Solar heat literally strips the skin off it. Scientists have calculated that during its passage near the Sun, Atlas will lose up to 10% of its total mass. This is billions of tons of ice and rock that will remain in space forever, forming a new meteor shower. Distance. Today, the comet is at a distance of 120 million kilometers from us. This seems safe, and it truly is. The minimum distance at which it will approach Earth will be 46 million kilometers. This is almost 120 times farther than the Moon. However, because of its giant tail, we can say that Earth will pass through peripheral areas of its gas trail. This does not pose a threat to life, but it is a fact that boggles the imagination. The brightness of a comet is measured in magnitudes. The smaller the number, the brighter the object. The Sun has a magnitude of -26. The full moon is -12. Comet Atlas has already reached magnitude 0, which makes it brighter than Vega, one of the brightest stars in the night sky. Forecasts by scientists say that at the moment of perihelion passage, its brightness may reach -6. This means that it can be seen during the day, even when the Sun is shining, if you know where to look. Another interesting fact is the temperature. Inside the nucleus of the comet, a cold close to -270 degrees Celsius is still preserved. This is a relic cold from the beginning of time. However, its surface has already heated up to +80 degrees, and in the corona of the Sun, it will experience a temperature of over 3,000 degrees Celsius. This is a temperature drop that no terrestrial technology is capable of withstanding without special protection. To understand what to expect next, we turn to leading specialists who analyze data from satellites and ground observatories around the clock. Their names and positions are known worldwide, and their forecasts are currently determining the strategy of space agencies. Dr. Elizabeth Grant, head of the Solar System Dynamics Department at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, gives this forecast. We are watching the dynamics of the nucleus very closely. The main question now is whether there are deep cracks in the nucleus. If solar heat penetrates too deep, the gas pressure inside will simply blow the comet apart from within. It will be an explosion equivalent to thousands of nuclear warheads, but on a cosmic scale, it will look like a sudden flash that will outshine everything else in the sky. We give a 60% chance that the nucleus will remain intact. Professor Mark Watkins, a leading specialist in cometary astronomy at Oxford University, focuses on another aspect. Atlas is not just ice, it is a chemical laboratory. Our latest spectral images show the presence of complex hydrocarbons in its coma. This confirms the theory that comets could have brought the building blocks of life to the early Earth. Each such object is a chance to look into our own origin. My forecast: we will find molecules in this comet that were previously seen only in deep interstellar space. Dr. Arish Kumar from the Harvard Center for Astrophysics expresses concern of a technical nature. People often forget about the solar wind. Comet Atlas is currently working like a huge sail. When it passes through the corona of the Sun, it will cause local disturbances in the solar plasma. This can trigger a solar flare directed toward us. This will not lead to a catastrophe, but we expect significant interference in high-frequency radio communication for a week after May 8, 2026. The director of the European Space Agency for Scientific Programs, Dr. Thomas Sabula, emphasizes the uniqueness of the moment for international cooperation. We are coordinating the work of 10 spacecraft, including Solo and Parker Solar Probe. These probes will approach the comet at a minimum distance. This will be the most detailed filming of a cosmic body in history. We expect to obtain images of the nucleus surface with a resolution of up to 1 meter. This will give us answers to questions we have been asking for decades. All experts agree on one thing. Regardless of whether the comet breaks apart or emerges from the encounter with the Sun intact, we have already won. The amount of data collected exceeds everything we have received from all comets in the last 30 years combined. This is a triumph of science happening right now. Here is what most people do not know. Even if the comet breaks into thousands of pieces, it does not mean the end of the show. On the contrary, a cloud of fragments will create an even larger surface for reflecting sunlight. This could turn the night sky into something completely unreal, where instead of one dot with a tail, we see a shimmering wall of cosmic dust. You can feel it right now, the tense expectation that reigns in the offices of scientists. By the end of this video, you will know more than 99% of people about how this event will change our understanding of the cosmos. But now we must move to the most disturbing part: how exactly this cosmic traveler will affect our planet. What changes in nature and technology might we feel in the coming days? What does a planet feel when a guest of this magnitude flies past it? At first glance, space seems empty and distances too great for real impact. However, Earth is not just a rock flying in a vacuum. It is a complex system with a magnetic field, atmosphere, and a thin biological layer. And Comet Atlas has already begun to interact with this system. The first thing scientists pay attention to is the interaction with our magnetosphere. Comet Atlas ejects a colossal amount of ionized gas into the surrounding space. When this stream of particles meets the solar wind, a giant plasma trail is created. Right now in April 2026, our planet is beginning to feel weak but distinct vibrations of the magnetic field at high frequencies. This does not cause destructive magnetic storms, but it creates unique conditions for auroras. Astronomers in Norway, Canada, and even in the northern regions of Ukraine are recording atypical shades in the night sky. These are not ordinary green lights. Due to the presence of dust particles and gas from the comet, the glow acquires rare violet and white colors. But there are also more tangible changes in our atmosphere. When a comet sheds its dust, part of it inevitably enters the upper layers of our gas envelope, the mesosphere. This happens at an altitude of 80 kilometers above sea level. These microscopic particles of cosmic ice and silicates become condensation nuclei. Moisture gathers around them, forming what we call noctilucent or night clouds. Usually they are rare, but now, in 2026, we are observing their anomalous spread. People all over the globe see a strange, ghostly glow in the sky an hour after sunset. This is the physical footprint of the comet in our sky. Does this affect ecosystems? Direct impact on the behavior of animals, as happens during solar eclipses, has not yet been recorded. However, scientists from the Institute of Marine Biology have noticed a strange reaction in deep-sea organisms that orient themselves by weak electromagnetic signals. Perhaps the change in the magnetic background caused by the interaction of the comet and the solar wind creates a certain noise for them. This is a field we are only beginning to study. It is important to understand. A comet does not change the climate. It does not cause earthquakes, but it disturbs the fine fields surrounding our world. Here is what most people do not know. Right now, Earth is preparing to pass through a cloud of old dust that Atlas left during its previous visits thousands of years ago. This can cause a meteor shower of incredible force. Scientists call this a star storm. Instead of the usual 20 meteors per hour, we may see thousands of flashes per minute. This is not dangerous for the Earth's surface because pebbles the size of a grain of sand burn up in the air. But for the atmosphere, this means additional ionization, which can affect the transparency of the air and even the formation of local clouds. We see how nature reacts to the majestic. This is a reminder that Earth is not an isolated island. We are part of a great ocean of energy and matter, and Comet Atlas is a large wave in this ocean hitting our shore. You can feel it right now, simply by looking at the sky. The atmosphere has become different. The light from the stars seems a little different because of the cosmic dust hanging in the high altitude. This is planetary resonance in action. Cosmic phenomena have always been a mirror for the human soul, and Comet Atlas was no exception. How we react to its appearance in April 2026 speaks more about us than about the comet itself. We live in an era of instant information, and this has created a unique psychological phenomenon that sociologists have already managed to call comet fever. How does it feel? On an everyday level, this manifests as a change in our daily schedule. Millions of people around the world have started waking up at 4 in the morning to see the tailed star. Sales of binoculars, telescopes, and professional cameras have increased by 300% in the last 2 months. Astrophotography has become the most popular hobby on the planet. This is a positive aspect. People have become interested in science again. Educational programs about space are breaking viewership records. Schools are making changes to physics lessons to explain to children what they see out the window. However, there is another side, the reaction of society to the unknown. Despite all the scientific explanations in many parts of the world, we are observing a surge of mysticism. Ancient archetypes of the tailed star as a herald of change are coming to life again. This creates a certain tension in society. Scientists and popularizers of science are forced to work around the clock to refute rumors about the end of the world or secret signals. This is a serious test for our ability to think critically. The reaction of governments also deserves attention. For the first time in history, we see such a level of openness. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration and other agencies are holding daily briefings. They understand that withholding any data can lead to panic. This has created a new culture of trust between the scientific community and the general public. The comet has become a common project of all humanity, but how does it affect you personally? You may feel a certain anxiety mixed with admiration. This is natural. When we see something so large that it is beyond our control, we feel our vulnerability. But at the same time, it gives us a sense of perspective. Your problems at work or everyday troubles seem insignificant against the background of a traveler who has been flying to us for 3 million years. This is a collective moment of humility before the greatness of the universe. It is interesting to observe how culture is changing. Musicians are writing albums inspired by Atlas. Designers are using comet colors in their collections. Even our language is changing. New metaphors and expressions are appearing. For the first time in a long while, we are discussing something that is not politics, war, or an economic crisis. We are discussing space. This is the therapeutic effect of the comet. It has forced us to go beyond our small planetary bubble. By the end of this video, you will know more than 99% of people about what is actually happening behind the scenes of this event. But now it is important to understand. The main impact of the comet is not the change in the magnetic field and not the dust in the atmosphere. The main impact is the change in our thoughts. We have begun to think more about the future, about the safety of our planet, and about our place among the stars. You can feel it right now, that sense of belonging to something great. You are not just an observer. You are part of a civilization that is meeting a great comet with the weapon of knowledge, not with fear, for the first time in history. However, behind this admiration hide real technical challenges. What will happen to our satellites when the comet passes its peak? Will our digital infrastructure survive this cosmic exam? Next, we will dive into much more complex questions, real consequences for technology and long-term forecasts of scientists. We will find out why communication system engineers are currently working without weekends and what exactly they are trying to save. Although Comet C-2025S1 Atlas is at a distance of tens of millions of kilometers from us, its impact on the technological infrastructure of Earth is quite real. We live in an era where our lives completely depend on a fine network of satellites and electronic systems, and the cosmic guest has become a serious exam for this network. The first and foremost point of tension is the global positioning system. How does it work? Satellites in orbit send extremely precise signals that your smartphone or car uses to determine coordinates. However, this signal must pass through the ionosphere, the upper layer of the Earth's atmosphere. When a comet interacts with the solar wind, it creates powerful streams of charged particles. These particles, entering the ionosphere, cause its disturbances, similar to shimmering. For a global positioning system signal, it is like trying to read a text through glass, with water running down it. Engineers in mission control centers are recording an increase in positioning error. While it is usually 1 to 2 meters, in some regions it can now reach 10 meters. For an ordinary pedestrian, this is a trifle, but for autonomous systems, unmanned trucks, and aircraft landing systems, this is a critical factor. Right now, air traffic controllers in the North Atlantic are using backup communication protocols to neutralize these interferences. The next level is satellites directly in low Earth orbit. You have probably heard about satellite constellations, such as Starlink and other broadband internet systems. There are thousands of them. The dust that the comet sheds does not directly fall onto their orbit, but it changes the density of the upper layers of the atmosphere. When solar radiation heats this dust and gas, the atmosphere swells slightly. This increases the air resistance for the satellites. They have to turn on their engines more often to maintain orbit. This means faster fuel consumption and a shorter service life. But there is a more direct threat: micrometeoroids. The comet leaves behind a trail of particles smaller than a grain of sand. They move at huge speeds. Even such a tiny particle upon collision with a solar panel of a satellite can disable it or create an electrical breakdown. Operators of spacecraft are now turning their devices with their back to the direction of the comet stream to protect sensitive optics and electronics. This is a real cosmic ballet performance where every movement is calculated to the millimeter. Shortwave radio communication is also feeling the breath of the comet. Radio amateurs and emergency services report prolonged periods of communication blackouts. This is because the plasma tail of Comet Atlas creates a kind of screen for certain frequencies. This does not mean the internet will disappear, but systems of long-distance marine and aviation communication are forced to switch to more expensive satellite channels. Should we worry about ground infrastructure? The risk to power lines is minimal. However, the experience of past decades teaches us caution. When a comet passes perihelion, it can trigger a solar flare. If such a flare is directed at Earth, the ionosphere will be overloaded. This can cause induced currents in long metal structures, such as oil pipelines or main power grids. Power engineers in Canada and Scandinavia have already switched to an enhanced mode of monitoring transformer substations. This is a preventive measure, but it shows how seriously we take space weather in 2026. Here is what most people do not know. Our Earth observation satellites are currently receiving incredible data. Because the atmosphere has become more ionized, we can see the movement of air masses with a precision that was previously impossible. This is a paradox. The comet creates problems for communication, but at the same time gives meteorologists a tool for ultra-precise weather forecasts. Every technological problem becomes a step toward a new discovery. What do scientists say about the future after Comet C2025S1 Atlas leaves our sky? Long-term forecasts are divided into three main directions: the fate of the comet itself, scientific legacy, and new threats. Let us start with the fate of Atlas. The main question being discussed in astronomical circles is whether the nucleus will survive. Mathematical models of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration provide several scenarios. The most likely one is partial destruction. The comet has already lost a significant part of its mass. After May 8th, when it passes the point of maximum heating, it will begin to cool rapidly. This thermal shock can finish what the sun started. If the nucleus breaks apart, instead of one comet, we will get an entire cloud of fragments that will move along the same orbit. What does this mean for us in the long term? It means the birth of a new meteor shower. In a few decades, when Earth crosses this orbit again, our descendants will see an annual light show that we will call the Atlantids. This will be an eternal monument to this event of 2026. However, if the nucleus remains whole, the comet will return to the darkness of the Oort cloud. Its next visit will take place in hundreds of thousands, and possibly millions of years. This makes our current observations priceless. Humanity will not have another chance to study this particular object. The scientific legacy of this event will change our textbooks. We have obtained data on the composition of oxygen and hydrogen isotopes in a comet of this type for the first time. This will allow scientists to finally confirm or refute the theory that the water in our oceans was brought by exactly such icy travelers. Professor Mark Watkins claims that the data collected by the Parker Solar Probe during the comet's passage is equivalent to decades of theoretical calculations. We literally saw matter being born. Another long-term consequence is the development of planetary safety systems. Comet Atlas showed us that we can detect an object in advance, but we are still limited in the possibilities for its detailed study at great distances. Governments of leading countries have already announced an increase in funding for rapid response projects. It is planned to create a fleet of small interceptor satellites that will be in a standby mode in orbit. As soon as the next such guest appears, these devices will be able to fly to it in a matter of weeks, not months. Atlas became the catalyst for the space defense industry. Scientists also consider the possibility of cometary dust influencing the upper layers of the atmosphere for the next 5 to 10 years. Residing gases and particles can slightly change the optical properties of the mesosphere. This can lead to brighter sunsets all over the world. This will not change the global temperature, but it will become a part of our visual culture for a long time. Photographers of the future will remember the post-comet sky as a special period in art. Here is what most people do not know. The study of Comet Atlas pushed scientists toward a new hypothesis about hidden objects in the solar system. We realized that our sky is much more densely populated than we thought. Now telescopes are being tuned to search for objects that were previously considered too faint or fast. We are opening new horizons, and Comet Atlas became the lantern that illuminated these dark corners. You can feel it right now. We are standing on the threshold of a new era in astronomy. Everything we learned during these few months will be analyzed for years. You have become witnesses to not just a beautiful phenomenon, but a turning point in the history of our species. We have ceased to be just spectators. We have become active researchers capable of understanding and predicting the movement of celestial bodies. But before we finish this journey, we need to look into tomorrow. What awaits us in the coming weeks? How exactly can you become part of this story, and what should you do to not miss the final chord of this cosmic symphony? The next part is dedicated specifically to the future and your role in it. Now, as we are at the end of April 2026, we are only approaching the climax. The most important dates are still ahead. The first and most critical point is May 8th, 2026. This is the day of perihelion. Comet Atlas will approach the minimum distance to the Sun, 1,200,000 kilometers. At this moment, it will be moving so fast that it will fly a distance equal to the diameter of our star in just a few hours. On this very day, we will find out if the nucleus remains whole. If the comet survives, the next important date will be May 15th, 2026. That is when it will begin to emerge from behind the solar disk and appear in the evening sky. This will be an ideal time for observations in the northern hemisphere. The brightness of the object will gradually decrease, but its tail, on the contrary, may grow even larger due to the intensive evaporation of matter near the Sun. By the end of May 2026, the comet will be visible to the naked eye immediately after sunset. It will hang in the western part of the sky, gradually rising higher each night. On June 1st, 2026, Atlas will pass through the constellation Gemini. This will be the period of the most beautiful photographs, as the comet will be positioned against the background of the bright stars of our galaxy. In the middle of June 2026, the comet will begin its long way back into the outer limits of the solar system. It will gradually fade. By July 2026, seeing it without binoculars will no longer be possible. However, scientists will continue to monitor it using large telescopes until the year 2030. It will slowly fade away until it again turns into a dark, icy rock flying in the void. Its journey home will last tens of thousands of years. We are the only generation of humans seeing it in such a state. Leading space agencies of the world perceive Comet Atlas not only as an object for admiration, but as a unique test ground. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration has already adjusted the orbit of its Parker Solar Probe. On May 5th, it will pass through the outer layers of the comet's tail. This will allow for the taking of samples of substance directly at the moment of its evaporation near the Sun for the first time in history. The European Space Agency, together with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration of the United States of America, are coordinating the work of satellites monitoring the Sun. Their goal is to record the interaction of cometary plasma with the solar corona. Governments of many countries have allocated additional resources for radio telescope networks. It is important to obtain data on how the tail of the comet affects radio communication on a global scale. In addition, many countries have begun reviewing their cosmic safety protocols. Comet Atlas demonstrated that objects from the Oort cloud can appear suddenly. Preparation is currently underway for the launch of a new early detection system that will be based in orbit around Venus. This will allow seeing objects approaching from the direction of the Sun, a zone that is currently blind to our ground telescopes. Atlas became the impulse for creating a true cosmic shield for Earth. You are not just a passive spectator of this drama. You can become part of scientific history. Right now, astronomers are calling on amateurs to join citizen science. Your photographs, taken even on modern smartphones, can be useful. There is a special platform where you can upload your shots with an indication of the exact time and coordinates. This helps scientists track the dynamics of the comet tail development in real time from different points on the planet. How to prepare for observations. The best time is evening twilight after May 10th, 2026. Find a place away from city lights. Look to the west. The comet will look like a blurry star with a beam of light directed upward. If you have ordinary hunting binoculars, take them. Even a small magnification will reveal to you the details of the tail structure and the greenish tint of the coma. Be sure to follow safety rules. Never try to look at the comet during the day through binoculars or a telescope until the sun has set behind the horizon. Direct sunlight can instantly and permanently damage your vision. Use mobile apps for mapping the sky. They will help you accurately find Comet Atlas among thousands of other stars. This is your unique chance. Do not miss it, because the next similar opportunity may occur only in 100 years. Despite all calculations, there remains room for surprises in this story. The biggest unknown factor is the internal structure of the nucleus. We do not know how dense it is. If there are large reserves of volatile gases inside Comet Atlas, it could suddenly flare up, becoming 10 times brighter in one night. Such a phenomenon scientists call an outburst. This is impossible to predict in advance. Another mystery is the trajectory of small fragments. If the nucleus begins to crumble, we cannot know exactly how the dust cloud will be distributed in space. This can lead to the meteor shower being much more intense than we expect. Why is this difficult to predict? Because such small objects are influenced by the pressure of sunlight, which is constantly changing. Comet Atlas is a living organism constantly transforming. Every second of its flight near the sun brings new data that can completely change our current forecasts. We are in a state of constant scientific discovery. You can feel it right now, the tension before the final act. What will actually happen when Atlas touches the solar corona? Will we see a majestic exit or a tragic finale? What should we remember about this incredible event of 2026? First, Comet C 2025 S1 Atlas is the purest sample of primordial matter we have ever studied. This is an icy fragment that is over 4,500,000,000 years old. It came from the darkest corners of the Oort cloud to become the main object of our sky for a few weeks. Second, the scales of Atlas are mind-boggling. Its nucleus, with a diameter of 5 kilometers, carries a mass of 70 billion tons. Its tail stretched for 30 million kilometers, which is 75 times greater than the distance from the Earth to the Moon. Third, we have become witnesses to the triumph of human intelligence. We detected this threat, predicted its path, and were able to look into the very heart of the coma using the most advanced instruments created by humans. This comet taught us that space is not just beautiful, it is dynamic, changeable, and full of energy that can affect our technological civilization. We learned how the solar wind interacts with cosmic ice and how this echoes in our communication and navigation. This was the largest lesson of astronomy in real time. But behind every answer hide new mysteries. And what would have happened if the path of this comet lay only half a degree differently? If these 70 billion tons of ice and rock were directed not to the sun, but directly to our planet? We know that today we are safe, but Atlas reminded us of the vulnerability of our small blue home. Are we truly ready for an encounter with an object that will not leave us months to prepare? And there is one more question that makes scientists spend sleepless nights at monitors. Does Atlas carry in its tail something more than just dust? We found complex organic molecules. We found water identical to that in our oceans. What if exactly such comets once, billions of years ago, became the seed from which all life on Earth grew? Perhaps looking at the tail of Comet Atlas, we are actually looking in the mirror of our own origin. What if we are all just star dust that once traveled in such an icy capsule through the infinite darkness? This is a question to which we may never receive a definitive answer, but it forever changes how we perceive ourselves in this boundless universe. This knowledge now belongs to you. You spent this time looking behind the scenes of a great cosmic show, and now you know more about Comet Atlas than 99% of the people on the planet. Why is this important specifically for you? Because in a world where we are often focused on trifles, such events give us a rare opportunity to feel like a part of something truly grand. Subscribe to the channel. This is the best way to support our future investigations. Every time you now look at the night sky, you will see not just stars. You will see a system that is in constant motion. You will understand the mechanics of the universe. This knowledge is your superpower. If it was interesting for you to walk this path with us, stay on the channel. Ahead are many more mysteries that we will uncover together. Our next investigation will be even deeper. Thank you for choosing knowledge, not fear. Comet C 2025 ES-1 Atlas will sooner or later disappear in the depths of space. Its glow will fade, and its tail will dissolve in the darkness for thousands of years. But your awareness of the infinity of the world in which we live will remain with you forever. The next time you feel that your problems are too big, just remember the traveler who was flying to us for 3 million years. Look up, Look at the sky, because it is there, among the distant lights, that the answers hide to the questions of who we are and where we are going. Until we meet in the next journey through space and time.